The rain had just let up over Atlanta, leaving the city streets slick and shining like black glass. Neon signs reflected in the puddles, and the slow hum of traffic drifted through the air. Inside the towering glass building of Kingsley Global Enterprises, the last of the evening staff filed out, their laughter and chatter echoing down the marble lobby before fading into the night. On the top floor, where floor-to-ceiling windows framed the glittering skyline, sat a man whose name alone carried weight: Donovan Kingsley. Tall, broad-shouldered, skin smooth and dark like polished mahogany, Donovan was every bit the image of success. At 39, he was already one of the youngest black CEOs to lead a billion-dollar investment firm. His reputation was sharp, precise, and untouchable. He demanded perfection, not just from others but from himself. The city called him ruthless. The business journals called him brilliant. To his employees, he was intimidating, a figure you didn't approach unless absolutely necessary. And yet, beneath all that polish and power, Donovan carried a loneliness so deeply buried, he rarely admitted it even to himself. The divorce had left a scar 2 years ago. His ex-wife Simone had left with a bitter taste and no children between them. Donovan poured himself into the company, telling himself he didn't need anyone. Not a wife, not friends, certainly not children. He believed family distracted you, made you weak. Business demanded every ounce of him, and he gave it willingly. Tonight, though, as the office clock ticked past 9, Donovan found himself staring at a photograph he rarely showed anyone. It was old him as a boy, standing beside his father, outside a small auto shop in southwest Atlanta. His father's calloused hands rested proudly on Donovan's shoulders. The man had been tough, hard-working, unyielding in his lessons. "Son," he used to say, "your word is everything. You may not be born rich, but if your word is solid, people will trust you. And trust will build your kingdom." Donovan blinked, set the photo down, and shook his head. Sentiment had no place here. He reached for his glass of bourbon when, "Excuse me, sir." The voice was soft, too soft. Donovan frowned. No one ever entered his office without knocking. He turned toward the door and froze. There, standing small and unsure in the doorway, was a little girl. She couldn't have been more than 6, maybe 7. Her hair was done up in uneven braids, a backpack hung lopsided over her shoulder, and her shoes were scuffed like they'd walked 1,000 miles. Her big brown eyes blinked at him nervously, her lip trembling like she might bolt at any second. For a moment, Donovan thought he was imagining things. A child? In his office? At this hour? What in the world? He stood, towering over her. "How did you get in here? Where's your mother? Your father?" The girl clutched her backpack tighter. Her voice shook, but she forced the words out. "Sir, could you pretend to be my daddy, just for one day?" The air in the office seemed to still. Donovan stared at her, caught completely off guard, his mind scrambling for logic. Pretend to be her father? What kind of question was that? "Little girl," Donovan said slowly, trying to gather himself. "Where's your family? You can't just wander into offices like this. Do you even know who I am?" She shook her head quickly. "No, sir. I just need a daddy for tomorrow. Just one day. Please?" Donovan rubbed his temple. This was absurd. Security should never have allowed this. He reached for his phone to call down, but then he caught the look in her eyes, desperation, fear, and something else, hope, the kind of hope that made your chest ache whether you wanted it to or not. "What's your name?" he asked, softer this time. "Amaya," she whispered. "And how old are you, Amaya?" 7, almost 8. 7, Donovan exhaled. "All right, where's your mom?" Amaya lowered her gaze, her voice so small he almost didn't catch it. "She's working late. She always works late. And I don't got a daddy." Donovan felt a tug in his chest. He pushed it down, straightening his tone. "That still doesn't explain why you're here." Amaya bit her lip, then in a rush of words, blurted it out. There's a daddy-daughter dance at my school tomorrow night. They said I can't go unless I got a daddy, and I didn't want to be the only one without one again, so I thought maybe you could just pretend. Just for that one night. The words hit Donovan like a punch to the gut. He blinked, trying to process what he was hearing. A dance? She came all the way up here into his office, just to ask a stranger to stand in as her father? He shook his head firmly. That's not possible. I don't even know you, and you don't know me. You can't just, but you look like you'd be a good daddy, she interrupted softly. You look like you could protect me. Her words hung heavy in the air. Donovan opened his mouth to respond, but nothing came out. For the first time in years, he felt completely disarmed. Before he could collect himself, the sound of hurried footsteps echoed from the hall. A woman appeared in the doorway out of breath, her hair tied back in a messy bun, scrubs wrinkled from a long shift. Her eyes widened when she saw her daughter standing in Donovan's office. Amaya, she gasped, rushing in. Lord, I told you not to run off like that. I'm so sorry, sir. She didn't bother you, did she? Donovan glanced between the woman and the little girl. The resemblance was clear now, the same eyes, the same delicate frame. The woman was young, maybe late 20s, early 30s. Tired, yes, but beautiful in a way that seemed unpolished, unpretentious. She looked like she'd been through hell. And kept walking anyway. I was just about to call security, Donovan said. His voice clipped, though he didn't mean it as harshly as it sounded. Your daughter wandered into my office. The woman flushed with embarrassment, pulling Amaya close. I'm so sorry. I was delivering a file to one of the nurses in the clinic downstairs and told her to wait by the lobby. She must have gotten curious and, well, she gave Amaya a look. You can't just bother people like this, baby. Amaya looked down, mumbling. I just wanted to ask. The woman frowned. Ask what? Silence. Amaya didn't answer. She only held her backpack tighter, cheeks reddening. Donovan cleared his throat. It's fine, she was just leaving. He motioned toward the door. The woman nodded quickly, tugging Amaya's hand. Thank you, sir. Again, I apologize. As they turned to leave, Donovan felt an unexpected pang. Something about the way Amaya's shoulders slumped, the quiet defeat in her little frame gnawed at him. He tried to shake it off. He was not about to get involved in strangers' lives, especially not in something as messy as this, and yet the words replayed in his head. Sir, could you pretend to be my daddy, just for one day? That night, Donovan went home to his penthouse suite in Buckhead. The place was immaculate, designed like a showroom, every detail curated for luxury, yet it was silent. Too silent. He poured another bourbon, sat by the window, and tried to bury himself in tomorrow's board meeting agenda, but he couldn't, not fully. His mind drifted back to that little girl, to the way she'd looked at him as if he were her last chance, to the disappointment in her eyes when he'd said no. Why should he care? He didn't even know her. He had no time for distractions. Children were not his responsibility. And yet, he couldn't shake the thought of her standing at the edge of that dance, watching all the other girls with their fathers. Alone. By midnight, Donovan had given up on work. He sat staring at the city lights, unsettled in a way he hadn't felt in years. Meanwhile, in a cramped two-bedroom apartment on the south side of the city, Amaya lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. Her mother, Elena, sat at the kitchen table, bills spread out like a storm in front of her. The rent was late again. The hospital shifts barely covered food and lights. She pinched the bridge of her nose, fighting back tears. She had promised herself she'd give Amaya a better life than this, but every month felt like drowning a little more. Mama? A small voice called from the bedroom. Elena turned, forcing a smile. What is it, baby? You should be asleep. Amaya hesitated. Do you think Maybe that man will come to the dance? Alina's chest tightened. She sat beside her daughter on the bed, smoothing her braids. Sweetheart, that was very brave of you to ask him, but men like him, they're busy. They don't have time for things like school dances. But he looked like he could, Amaya whispered. He looked like he could be my daddy. Elena's throat ached. She kissed her daughter's forehead. You don't need a daddy to be special, baby. You're already the best thing in the world. Amaya nodded, but her eyes glistened with unshed tears. She rolled over, clutching her teddy bear, and finally drifted to sleep. Alina sat there in the dark, her heart breaking for her daughter. She knew tomorrow night would hurt. Watching all those other girls twirl with their fathers while Amaya sat alone, it wasn't fair. But life rarely was, and somewhere across town, in a penthouse filled with silence, Donovan Kingsley poured himself another drink, unaware that tomorrow, everything in his carefully ordered world was about to unravel. The stage is set, the lonely CEO, the desperate little girl, and the mother carrying the weight of the world. Their lives have brushed against each other, and though Donovan told himself he was done with it, fate had already drawn the first thread. The next morning, Donovan's alarm cut through the silence at 5:30 sharp. He swung his legs out of bed, shook off the haze of bourbon, and began his routine jog through the neighborhood. Cold shower, pressed suit, black tie, efficiency, precision, control. That was how he lived. That was how he won. And yet, as he adjusted his cufflinks in the mirror, the image of Amaya crept into his mind again. Sir, could you pretend to be my daddy just for one day? He scowled at his reflection, brushing it away like an irritating gnat. He had no business getting tangled up in some stranger's family drama. Today was the quarterly investor briefing. Billions of dollars in capital depended on his presence, his clarity, his dominance. He rode the elevator down, his reflection fractured in the polished steel walls. But when the doors slid open to the lobby, he froze, because she was there, Amaya, standing near the reception desk in her school uniform, a plaid skirt, white blouse, little cardigan buttoned wrong at the top. Her backpack sagged off one shoulder, and in her hand she clutched a folded flyer. She looked around nervously, rising on tiptoe every few seconds like she was searching for someone. Donovan's stomach sank. What was she doing here again? Mr. Kingsley, the receptionist said, glancing nervously between him and the girl. She's been waiting about 15 minutes. She said she needs to speak with you. Amaya's face lit up when she spotted him. She hurried over, gripping the flyer. Sir, you're here. Donovan stiffened. Amaya, what are you doing here? I thought I made it clear last night. Please, she whispered urgently, holding out the paper. This is the dance. It's tonight, 7 o'clock. You don't even gotta stay long. Just come with me so I don't gotta be the only one without a daddy. The flyer trembled in her hand. Bright pink letters announced, Jefferson Elementary Daddy-Daughter Dance, Friday, 7 p.m. Donovan clenched his jaw. The receptionist was staring. Employees were walking past, whispering. This was the kind of spectacle he avoided at all costs. Amaya, he said firmly, crouching to meet her eye level. Listen to me. I cannot do this. I'm a very busy man. You need to ask your mother about this, not me. Her lower lip quivered, but she didn't back down. I did ask her. She can't come, 'cause it's for daddies only. Please, sir. Just for tonight. Just pretend. For a second, Donovan felt that tug again, the same one from last night. But he shoved it down hard. No, he said, sharper than he meant. Now you go on home. Don't come back here again. Her eyes widened at the harshness, tears welling instantly. She looked like he'd struck her. And before he could soften it, before he could even explain, she turned and bolted through the lobby doors into the morning crowd. Damn it, Donovan muttered under his breath. The receptionist gave him a reproachful look. Donovan straightened his tie and marched toward the waiting car, pretending it hadn't shaken him. But it had deeply. At the investor briefing, Donovan was flawless as always, commanding the room, answering hard questions, projecting confidence. But beneath the polished surface, his mind was elsewhere. Every time he glanced at his notes, he saw Maya's tear-streaked face. Every time someone congratulated him on another successful quarter, he heard her tiny voice, "You look like you could protect me." By the time the meeting wrapped, Donovan felt like he'd run a marathon. He loosened his tie in the car, staring out at the city as it rolled past. His driver, Marcus, glanced in the rear view. "You good, boss? You look, I don't know, distracted." Donovan shot him a look. "I'm fine." But he wasn't, and when Marcus pulled up in front of the building, Donovan made a decision before he could talk himself out of it. "Marcus, cancel my evening appointments." Marcus blinked. "All of them?" "Sir, you've got, cancel them." Donovan's voice left no room for argument. "And drive me to Jefferson Elementary." Marcus raised his brows but nodded. "Yes, sir." At Jefferson Elementary, the parking lot was already filling with cars. Fathers in suits and palas helped their daughters out, holding little hands, fixing tiaras, smoothing dresses. Laughter floated through the air, the kind of innocent joy Donovan hadn't heard in years. He sat in the back seat, staring at the entrance. What the hell am I doing here? This was madness. He should be at the club networking or reviewing tomorrow's deals. He had no tie to this child, no obligation. If anyone saw him, Donovan Kingsley, the no-nonsense CEO, walking into a school gymnasium for a children's dance, they'd laugh him out of the boardroom. And yet, he opened the door. Inside the gym, streamers of pink and silver hung from the rafters. Balloons bobbed against the ceiling. A DJ played upbeat pop songs, the floor already buzzing with kids and dads spinning each other around. And near the edge of the room, sitting alone at a folding chair, was Amaya. She wore a simple blue dress, one her mother must have ironed carefully, and white shoes that were slightly too big. She clutched her teddy bear on her lap, watching the other girls dance with their fathers. Her smile was small, forced, like she was pretending it didn't matter. Donovan's chest tightened. He walked toward her, each step heavier than the last, when she noticed him. Her eyes widened, disbelief written across her face. You came?" Donovan cleared his throat. "I must be out of my damn mind," he muttered. Then louder, "Yeah, I came." Amaya's whole face lit up like Christmas morning. She jumped up and threw her arms around his waist. Donovan froze, stiff as a board, before awkwardly patting her shoulder. All right. Don't make a scene," he said, though there was no bite in it. "Come on," she urged, tugging his hand toward the dance floor. Donovan hesitated, looking around. Already people were staring. Fathers whispering to each other, mothers at the refreshment table stealing glances. He knew how it looked, this powerful, polished man in his tailored suit, hand in hand with a little girl no one had ever seen him with. But then Amaya grinned up at him, her eyes sparkling. Just one song? And damn it if he didn't follow her onto that floor. The first song was clumsy. Donovan had never danced with a child before. He moved stiffly, his hand hovering awkwardly near her shoulder while she giggled and tried to spin. "Loosen up," she scolded playfully. "You dance like a robot." "A robot, huh?" he said, raising a brow. "Yeah, like beep boop." She moved stiffly, mimicking him, and he couldn't help it. A laugh burst out of him. A real laugh, unguarded, the kind he hadn't heard from his own mouth in years. Amaya gasped. "You laughed?" "Don't sound so surprised," he said, still chuckling. Song after song played, and Donovan found himself relaxing. Amaya twirled, stomped, clapped, and he followed, awkward but willing. Other dads smiled at them, nodding. Teachers whispered. Curious, but Donovan didn't care. For the first time in a long time, The world outside this gym didn't exist. Then came the slow dance. The lights dimmed, a soft melody filled the air, and daughters climbed into their father's arms. Amaya looked up at him, suddenly shy. "Can we?" she asked softly. Donovan hesitated. His chest felt tight. But he nodded, lifting her carefully. She wrapped her arms around his neck, resting her head on his shoulder. She was light, fragile, trusting, and something cracked inside him. He closed, his eyes swaying to the music, his hand steady against her back. The scent of her hair, coconut oil and bubblegum shampoo stirred something deep, something he thought he'd buried. Memories of his own father's arms. Memories of what family had once meant. "Thank you," Amaya whispered. "For what?" "For being my daddy tonight." Donovan swallowed hard, unable to speak. When the dance ended, Elena was waiting at the door, still in her scrubs, hair pulled back, exhaustion written all over her. Her eyes widened when she saw Donovan carrying her daughter. "Mr. Kingsley?" she stammered. What are you doing here?" Amaya beamed. "Mama, look, he came. He was my daddy for the dance." Elena's mouth opened, then closed, then opened again. Why would?" She turned to Donovan, flustered. "I'm sorry, sir." "I hope she didn't pressure you into." "She didn't," Donovan interrupted, his voice steady. "I came because I wanted to." Elena blinked, stunned. For a moment, the three of them stood in the school hallway, the distant sound of laughter echoing behind them. Donovan, the untouchable CEO, Elena, the weary single mother, and Amaya, caught between them, glowing with joy. It was the most unexpected picture, the most dangerous one, because deep down Donovan knew this wasn't going to be the end. It was only the beginning. The Monday after the dance should have been like any other for Donovan Kingsley. He should have been reviewing quarterly reports, prepping for strategy meetings, barking out orders that sent subordinates scrambling. That was his rhythm, his world. But it wasn't, because the memory of Friday night lingered like smoke that refused to clear. Amaya's tiny hand in his, her head on his shoulder during the slow dance, her words echoing in his chest. "Thank you for being my daddy tonight." He told himself it was nothing, a one-time kindness, an indulgence. But then Saturday came, and he caught himself wondering how her weekend had gone. Sunday, he thought about what cartoons she might like, if her mother ever had the time to watch with her. And now, Monday morning, he sat at the head of the boardroom table, staring blankly as a vice president droned on about expansion models. "Sir?" The VP asked, hesitant. "Should we proceed with the Florida acquisition?" Donovan blinked, realizing he hadn't heard a word. The room full of executives watched him, waiting. He cleared his throat, masking the lapse. "Yes, proceed. Send me the revised numbers by end of day." The meeting rolled on, but Donovan felt the ground shifting beneath him. Something inside him wasn't cooperating anymore. The armor he had built, work, power, money, felt suddenly thin. Too thin. That evening, against every rational instinct, Donovan found himself driving toward the south side of the city. Toward a modest apartment complex with peeling paint and a flickering streetlight out front. He sat in his car for a long moment, gripping the wheel. What the hell was he doing? He had no reason to be here. No business showing up uninvited. And yet, he got out. He knocked on the door, and after a pause, it opened. Elena stood there, wearing an oversized hoodie and sweatpants, her hair down this time, her expression stunned. "Mr. Kingsley?" She sighed, voice uncertain. "Donovan," he corrected quietly. "May I come in?" She hesitated, eyes narrowing in suspicion. But then Amaya's voice rang out from inside. "Mama, who is it?" Before Elena could stop her, Amaya darted into view. When she saw him, she gasped, "You came!" Donovan's lips twitched, almost a smile. "Yeah, I came." Amaya flung herself At him, hugging his waist. Donovan stiffened at first, then let himself rest a hand gently on her back. Elena watched silently, a storm of emotions crossing her face. Finally, she stepped aside. "Come in." The apartment was small, cluttered, but clean. A stack of bills sat on the counter, alongside half-finished homework. The smell of spaghetti sauce simmering on the stove filled the air. "Sit," Elena said, motioning to the worn couch. She crossed her arms, studying him. "Why are you here, Mr. Kingsley Donovan? I don't mean to be rude, but powerful men don't just drop into apartments like this unless they want something." Donovan met her gaze evenly. "I don't want anything. He glanced at Amaya, who was already rummaging through her backpack. "I wanted to see how she was doing." Elena's brow furrowed. "She's fine. She doesn't need—" "Mama!" Amaya interrupted, pulling out a crayon drawing and thrusting it at Donovan. "Look, I drew us at the dance." The picture was crude but clear, stick figures under a disco ball. A little girl with braids, a tall man in a suit. Both smiling. Donovan stared at it longer than he meant to, something warm and painful twisting in his chest. "That's very good, Amaya." She beamed. Elena softened slightly, but her voice remained cautious. "Look, I appreciate what you did Friday night. You don't know how much it meant to her, but I can't let her get attached. You have a life, a company, a whole world that doesn't include us. I won't let her think otherwise." Donovan nodded slowly. "You're right. I don't belong here. And I can't promise anything I can't deliver." He paused. "But I also can't ignore the fact that I care more than I expected." Elena blinked, caught off guard by his honesty. Before she could answer, Amaya piped up again, tugging at Donovan's sleeve. "Will you come to my school playing next week? I'm the narrator. I get to read the biggest part." "Elena," Donovan began, but Amaya's eyes shone with hope, the same look from the first night in his office. And against every instinct of self-preservation, he heard himself say, "Yes, I'll be there." Elena closed her eyes, exhaling sharply. She knew what that meant. Once a man stepped into a child's heart like that, there was no undoing it. The days that followed pulled Donovan deeper into their orbit. He found himself stopping by after work, helping Amaya with math problems, fixing the leaky faucet in their kitchen. He saw the weight Elena carried, the double shifts, the bills she shuffled, the exhaustion etched into her face. And he saw the way Amaya's world brightened whenever he walked in the door, that with every step closer, the danger grew. The whispers started at the office. Rumors that the mighty Donovan Kingsley was seen at a rundown school gym. That he was spending time with a nurse from the South Side. Investors asked questions. Board members raised brows. And then came the storm. It started with a photograph, a paparazzi shot. Blurry but damning. Donovan holding Amaya's hand outside Jefferson Elementary. The caption on the gossip blog screamed, "Billionaire CEO's secret family." By the next morning, it was everywhere. News outlets speculated, tabloids spun stories, reporters camped outside his building. Investors demanded answers. Was this child his? Was there some scandal, some hidden affair? Donovan slammed the paper down on his desk, fury boiling in his veins. His phone rang nonstop. Board members, PR reps, lawyers, and then Elena called. "They're outside my building," she cried, panic in her voice. "Reporters, cameras asking if Amaya is your daughter. She's terrified, Donovan." What do we do? For the first time in years, Donovan felt helpless. His world, normally so controlled, was spiraling. And two people who had never asked for any of this were caught in the crossfire. "Stay inside," he ordered, his voice low and urgent. "Don't talk to anyone. I'm coming over." When he arrived, reporters swarmed the car. "Mr. Kingsley, is she your child? Are you hiding a family?" Cameras flashed, voices shouted. Donovan shoved through. his security detail holding them. Back, he stormed into the apartment, where Elena and Amaya huddled on the couch. Elena looked at him, her eyes blazing. "This is exactly what I was afraid of. You don't live in the real world, Donovan. People like you don't just drop into our lives without consequences." "I didn't ask for this either," he shot back. "But I'm not walking away." "You should," Elena snapped, tears in her eyes. "Before you ruin us both." Amaya clung to her mother, looking between them, frightened. "Stop," she whispered. "Please stop." The room fell silent. Donovan's chest heaved, his hands shaking with rage and fear. He had built empires, crushed competitors, commanded respect in every room he entered. But here, in this tiny apartment, he felt powerless. Because for the first time in his life, he had something to lose that money couldn't buy back, and the world was already trying to take it. That night, Donovan stood at his penthouse window, the city lights sprawling beneath him. His phone buzzed with messages, lawyers advising denial, PR reps drafting statements, board members threatening his position. He ignored them all. Instead, he thought of Amaya's drawing, of Elena's tired smile, of the way it felt to hold a little girl who believed he could protect her. He had spent his life building a kingdom of glass and steel. But maybe, just maybe, this was the first thing that actually mattered. And if that was true, then he was about to go to war to protect it. The world has found out. The walls are closing in. Donovan is caught between the empire he built and the family he never expected. And the hardest choices are still to come. The storm didn't pass overnight. It only grew by Tuesday morning. Every news outlet in Atlanta was running the story. Mystery child of Donovan Kingsley. Some speculated Amaya was his illegitimate daughter. Others suggested a secret romance, with Elena painting her as a gold digger. Paparazzi swarmed the hospital where she worked, the school where Amaya studied. Even Donovan's office tower. At Kingsley Global, the board of directors convened an emergency meeting. Gray-haired men in tailored suits sat around the polished table, eyes sharp and judgmental. "This has spiraled out of control," one said. "Our reputation is at stake. Investors are nervous," another added. "The stock dipped 3 points this morning. This cannot continue." The chairman, a steely man named Whitaker, leaned forward. "Donovan, you have two options. You issue a statement denying involvement with this woman and her child, or you step down as CEO until this blows over." The room went silent. All eyes on him. Donovan sat back, his jaw tight. For most of his career, his choices had been simple, win or lose. But this was different. He couldn't deny Elena and Amaya, not after what they'd given him. But to admit the truth meant scandal, chaos, maybe even the end of his empire. Thought of Amaya's small voice. "You look like you could protect me." He knew in that moment what kind of man he wanted to be. "I won't deny them," Donovan said firmly, "and I won't step down." The board erupted, voices overlapping outrage, disbelief, threats of lawsuits. Donovan let them rage. His decision was made. That night, Donovan went back to Elena's apartment. She met him at the door, her eyes red from crying. "Why are you here?" she demanded. "Haven't you caused enough trouble?" "I'm here because I'm not letting them tear you apart," he said quietly. Her voice trembled. "You don't get it. My boss pulled me aside today, told me the hospital doesn't want the media circus. I could lose my job." Amaya's teacher asked if she's safe at home. "They're treating us like we're some scandal, like we're dirty." Donovan's chest ached. He wanted to reach for her, but he didn't. "Not yet. Elena, listen to me. I can fix this. I'll protect you both." She laughed bitterly. "With what? Money? Lawyers? Cameras are outside right now, and my little girl is hiding in her room because she's scared of strangers yelling her name." Her words cut deep, but then a small voice drifted from the hallway. "Mama?" Amaya stood there, holding her teddy bear. Her eyes were wide, worried. Is Mr. Kingsley in trouble because of me? Donovan's throat tightened. He crouched to her level, meeting her eyes. No, sweetheart, you didn't do anything wrong. You hear me? None of this is your fault. She nodded slowly, then leaned in and hugged him. And in that hug, Donovan felt the truth settle heavy and undeniable. He wasn't walking away the next day. Donovan did something no one expected. He called a press conference when the cameras rolled. He stood tall at the podium, Elena at his side, Amaya clutching her hand. The room buzzed with questions, but Donovan raised a hand for silence. There's been speculation about this child, he began, his voice steady. So let me be clear, Amaya is not my biological daughter. But that does not mean she doesn't matter to me. Reporters leaned forward, hungry. I met Amaya by chance, Donovan continued. She asked me to stand in for her at a school dance. I said yes. And in that moment, I realized something I had forgotten, that success means nothing without people to share it with. I care about this child, and I care about her mother. Whatever the world thinks, I will not deny them. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Questions erupted. Are you in a relationship? Are you adopting her? How does this affect your role as CEO? Donovan didn't answer. He simply turned, resting a steady hand on Amaya's shoulder, guiding Elena and her daughter. Offstage, the headlines exploded. Some mocked him. Some praised him, stock dipped, then rebounded. But what mattered wasn't the noise outside. It was the silence in the car afterward, when Elena turned to him, tears glistening. You didn't have to do that, she whispered. Yes, I did, he said softly. Because you're not just some story for them to chew on. You're real, and I'm not letting them take that from you. For the first time, Elena let her guard down. She reached across the seat, took his hand, and held it. Weeks passed. The frenzy cooled. The paparazzi moved on to fresher scandals. Donovan weathered the storm, his company steady, his reputation scarred but intact. But his life changed forever. He went to Amaya's school play, front row, clapping louder than anyone. He helped Elena fix up the apartment, even snuck in a new couch one weekend. Slowly, carefully, he built a place in their lives, not as a savior, not as a billionaire swooping in, but as a man who showed up. And one quiet evening, as the three of them shared dinner spaghetti again, Amaya's favorite Elena caught his eye across the table. You know, she said softly, she calls you daddy now when she talks about you at school. I've tried to tell her not to, but Donovan's heart thudded. He glanced at Amaya, who grinned with tomato sauce on her cheek. I don't mind, he said. His voice cracked just slightly. Not at all. Elena smiled, small, genuine, tired, but hopeful. For the first time since Donovan had met her, hope outweighed the weariness in her eyes. Months later, Donovan stood again in that glittering office high above Atlanta. The same photo of his father still sat on his desk. Only now, next to it, was a crayon drawing framed in cheap plastic. Stick figures under a disco ball, a little girl with braids, a tall man in a suit. Both smiling, and for the first time in his life, Donovan Kingsley felt like a king, not because of the empire he built, not because of the money, or the power, or the fear he inspired, but because somewhere in a small apartment on the South Side, a little girl was waiting for him to come home, and he would. Every time,